Our next speaker is Jim Wang. We've heard a lot about the US House and Senate. Jim was.
Excuse me, if I may, please. I apologize. I sent you a message. I really have to be at the Friday prayer, and I have to leave in about 20 minutes. And I sent you a private message, but I know as you're hosting, you did not see it. And I apologize for having to leave, but it is Friday, and I have to go to the Friday prayer. If it is possible for me to present, I would appreciate it.
I'm sure everyone understands. Please, Khalid Turaani, have the floor.
Okay. Once again, I apologize from the other speaker who's supposed to speak. Basically, I mean, I want to start by saluting Khalil Awawde, a Palestinian who has endured 172 days of hunger strike, protesting his unlawful detention. Khalil Awawde, for those who don't know him, was born in 1982. He has spent 12 years of his life in Israeli prisons. 6 of those 12 years were in administrative detention. Administrative detention means the Israelis can put you in jail and not charge you with any crime, hold you in prison indefinitely for 6 months at a time. That can be renewed. I see with us, by the way, former Congressman Jim Moran. Greetings to you, sir. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for the opportunity. So Khalil Awawde spent all this time in a hunger strike, 172 days. I mean, really came that close to dying. If it was not Israel who was holding Khalil Awawde, and if Khalil Awawde was not Palestinian, he would have been celebrated all over the world for his heroic stands firm on justice. But it is Israel. And unfortunately, in a Western context, we have to give Israel a pass. This is really shameful. What I wanted to talk about is the Israeli matrix of apartheid. Israeli apartheid is very unique. That it is. I mean, a lot of times we address specific actions that the Israelis are doing in perpetrating apartheid against the Palestinian. But if we put it all in one, and kind of tie it together, these different practices. I mean, we talk about home demolition, and we say this is apartheid, and then we talk about confiscation of Palestinian land, and then we say, well, this is an Israeli apartheid. But I think trying to put it together as a matrix of apartheid, it is an entire regime that really support different aspects of that apartheid regime. I think we kind of get to see the fuller picture of how Palestinians are suffering under that Israeli apartheid. For example, that 7% in Jerusalem, as in maybe a microcosm of that apartheid. In Jerusalem, the Israelis express their desire, express their policies openly. They don't try to hide it, that we must keep a balance of population balance. We don't want more Palestinians in Jerusalem. It has to be at maximum 40% Palestinians. The balance has always to be in favor of the Jewish population. So in order for them to achieve that, they do home demolition, they do land confiscation, they make it very difficult for Palestinians to run their businesses through an apartheid-like regime of arnuna or taxes on buildings and on businesses. But also the Israelis issue only 7% of the building permits in Jerusalem are issued to Palestinians, who are near 50% of the population. The Israelis wanted to push that percentage to 40%, but even at 50% of the population, Palestinians get 7% of the building permits. Israeli Jews get 93% of the building permit. So that is one way the Israelis can perpetrate and can execute their apartheid system on the Palestinians. The demolition of entire communities, like in the Negev desert, So when it is occupied territory, it is one thing, but when it is Israeli citizens who are being discriminated against in a very methodical and systemic kind of way, that really makes it very pronounced and very clear apartheid. So they demolish a Palestinian village of Bedouins in the Negev desert. Those are Israeli citizens. They demolish their village many times. Like they go 10 times and they destroy the village. The Palestinians rebuild, in like tents and cardboard houses and just very rudimentary buildings to live in, to keep them from the sun in the summer and from rain in the winter, and the Israelis will destroy it. They destroy it 10 times, then 20 times, then 30 times, then 40 times, determined to really drive those Palestinians out of their villages. This is in the areas occupied by Israel in 1948, that is in the Negev desert. But then in Al-Khalil or Hebron, in the West Bank, they go to Musafir Yatta, another Bedouin village that has been there for hundreds and hundreds of years, and they destroy the entire village for driving those Palestinians out, and they pitch, the Palestinians will pitch tents and try to stay in their land and in their village. This is another thing. Another part of that matrix of apartheid is trying to close down the Palestinian human rights organization. So we do the home demolition, we do the land confiscation, and then we try to close down the Palestinian human rights organizations that are defending those who are the victims of the Israeli apartheid. This is another part of that matrix. Another part of the matrix is making sure that Palestinians' life is as miserable as it can be. Well, we know that Palestinians depend heavily on their crops, whether it is olives or the fig trees or the pomegranate. And so Palestinians are peasant society for the most part outside of the cities. So the Israeli settlers, under the protection of the Israeli military, go, and when it is time to harvest the olive crops, the Israelis go and then they burn the olive trees, they steal the crops, they assault the Palestinian farmers as they're trying to collect their olive crops, making it, I mean, a Palestinian farmer waits all year for the time when it is time to harvest the olive crops. And when they are just reaching that point of harvesting their crop, the Israelis come, either they burn the trees, steal the crops, or assault the villagers and make it really difficult for the Palestinians to gain really the financial benefits of their land, the land of milk and honey, as you'd know, in a biblical context. Now, another part of that matrix is using the Israeli courts. So, for example, in Musafir Yatta, the Palestinian village near Hebron, where the entire village is being destroyed, you go to the Israeli Supreme Court, and the Israeli Supreme Courts happen to agree with the Israeli military, and they say, well, yeah, that village have got to be destroyed. To me, it reminds me that during slavery in the United States, you go to the court saying, a slave will go to the court saying, they shouldn't buy me and sell me. I am a human being. And then the Supreme Court or the courts, and with those judges, respectable judges with their robes and their doctorate from the Sorbonne or from whatever university they graduated, come and with a straight face tell that slave, no, they have the right to enslave you. Or a judge in apartheid South Africa will go to a native in South Africa and say, well, you happen to be half of a human being, so because of that, you shouldn't ride the bus with the white people, or whatever ruling that those judges are making. The same thing is happening in 2022, where an Israeli judge who probably graduated from Columbia University migrated to make Aliyah to Israel and became a judge there, and that educated person with doctorate in jurisdiction, JD degree in law, doctorate in law, and would sit there and will tell a Palestinian, well, yeah, I understand, but the law says that we have to destroy your village because the Israeli military confiscated your village. That kind of matrix of control, matrix of apartheid, make life extremely difficult for the Palestinians. But despite all of that, I see Palestinians continue to be resilient. The Palestinians' resistance in their own land is being met, unfortunately, in the West with acquiescence to the Israeli apartheid, standing down, really, if you will, for the Israelis' support, and as the other speakers have said, continuing to support the Israeli through military means, through shielding Israel from its action against the Palestinians, just like what happened in South Africa. South Africa could not have continued to be the apartheid regime that it was without the US and the British, as well as the European support of that apartheid regime under all kind of pretense, calling the National Congress, calling them terrorist groups, and finding all kind of excuses for the apartheid regime in South Africa. We see that happening all over again now with Israel and with the Palestinians. It is high time for the West to stop supporting the apartheid regime and not to repeat history all over again and waiting until more Palestinians are going to be killed and more suffering for the Palestinians before the West stop its supports. Without the West standing really between the Palestinians and the Israelis, supporting on the side of the Israelis, Israel cannot continue to be the apartheid regime that it is, and I think the West have got to stop. I'm sorry, maybe I've gone a little over time, and I apologize for speaking out of turn, but you understand it is Friday. Thank you so much.